From moments of sheer brilliance that will be etched in golf history, to the crushing weight of defeat as major championship dreams evaporated in an instant. These are 20 of the most unforgettable moments the sport has ever witnessed. It's the 2009 President's Cup. For Australian veteran Robert Allenby, this would become a tough lesson in the importance of preparation and professionalism on the biggest stage. The night before the crucial final day singles matches in San Francisco, a player's focus should be singular. Instead of rest and strategy, Allenby made a questionable decision. Rather than a quiet dinner, reports surfaced that Allenby was out late, allegedly consuming a significant amount of alcohol. The following day, looking worse for wear, he stepped onto the first tee to face Anthony Kim, and the result was predictable. He lost his match decisively. But in the aftermath, instead of taking accountability, Allenby deflected, a move that damaged his reputation. He publicly accused his opponent, Anthony Kim, of being out just as late, an unsubstantiated claim that Kim vehemently denied. From a competitor's standpoint, this is a cardinal sin. The American team was rightfully incensed by the accusations. The incident cast a pall over the event and painted Allenby not as a competitor, but as a sore loser. This wasn't an isolated incident. Fast forward to 2011, and Allenby's inability to win a point for the international team led to more controversy. Does he look inward? No. He placed the blame squarely on his teammates, leading to a now infamous confrontation with fellow countryman Geoff Ogilvy, a dispute that very nearly came to blows. It's a stark reminder that in team golf, chemistry is everything. Rory. Next up, number 19. We're in the desert, where course conditions can present unique challenges. Rory McIlroy, one of the game's purest ball strikers, found himself in an analyst's nightmare. His ball came to rest directly against a large rock, a classic loose impediment situation. Under the rules of golf, you cannot move a loose impediment if it will cause your ball to move. Rory's predicament was clear. He stood over the ball, processing his options. Taking an unplayable lie and a penalty stroke was an option, but not one he could afford. So, in a bold and risky play, Rory decided to play the ball and the rock simultaneously. He addresses the ball, the gallery holding its breath. From a technical standpoint, this is an incredibly difficult shot, with a high margin for error or even injury. With a powerful downswing, the club head makes contact. The result is explosive and unpredictable. The ball cannons off the club face, rocketing uncontrollably into the gallery. And in a moment of sheer bad luck, it strikes a spectator, the force knocking him off balance. The man stumbles backward, and in a cruel twist of fate, he falls directly into a large cactus. But not just any cactus, these are the notorious jumping chalice, whose barbs latch on with the slightest contact, giving the illusion that they leap onto you. The scene is chaotic and painful to watch. The spectator is covered in sharp, embedded cactus segments. The crowd is in disbelief. To his credit, Rory immediately rushes over, visibly shaken and apologetic, but the damage is done. It's a bizarre and unfortunate reminder of the inherent dangers for spectators at a live golf event. Reed saga. Coming in at number 18, a player who is a magnet for rules controversies, the Patrick Reed saga. If you follow professional golf, you know that Patrick Reed has a history of playing close to the line. But what happened in 2019 took things to another level. Just before the President's Cup in Melbourne, Reed was competing at the Hero World Challenge. Cameras caught him in a waste bunker, taking practice swings that clearly and repeatedly moved sand from behind his ball, improving his lie. Reed claimed it was unintentional, but the video evidence was damning. He was assessed a 2-stroke penalty, but the court of public opinion had already delivered a harsher verdict. Arriving in Melbourne, Reed walked into a hornet's nest. The Australian crowd was merciless. The heckling was relentless and, at times, personal. The excavator became his moniker for the week. But for a player like Reed, this animosity can be fuel. He leaned into the villain role, at one point making a shoveling motion to the crowd after sinking a putt. But the situation escalated when it went from verbal to physical. On Saturday, Reed's caddy, Kessler Karain, who is also his brother-in-law, engaged in a physical altercation with a spectator. According to reports, Karain confronted a fan he felt had crossed the line with verbal abuse toward Reed. Karain admitted to shoving the fan, stating that obscenities were yelled and a line was crossed. The PGA Tour took swift action, banning Karain from caddying in the Sunday singles matches, an almost unprecedented move. Reed, with a swing coach on the back, went on to lose his singles match to CT Pan. The incident completely overshadowed the competition, adding another chapter to Reed's controversial career. Yet, Despite it all, he managed to win crucial points earlier in the week, and the US team ultimately won the cup. Annika. Up next, number 17. At the 2013 Solheim Cup, the competition was rife with lengthy rules disputes. This time, the legendary Annika Sorenstam, serving as an assistant captain, was at the center of the controversy. Here's the situation: a European caddy concedes a short par putt to American Paula Creamer. A standard practice in match play. The problem: the caddy claimed he was acting on Sorenstam's instruction. This is a critical rules point. According to a pre-tournament captain's agreement, only the team captains were permitted to give advice. Creamer was understandably agitated, believing a rule had been breached. What followed was a prolonged discussion involving players, captains, and rules officials right on the green, disrupting the flow and momentum of the match. After a significant delay, the USGA official ultimately ruled that Sorenstam's actions did not constitute a breach of the rules. But the delays didn't end there. Later that evening, another 30-minute ruling was required on the 16th hole. The pace of play became so glacial that the Golf Channel broadcast began showing beauty shots of the moon, a subtle jab at how long the proceedings were taking. That Solheim Cup became known more for its disputes than its golf. But it was all a prelude to what would become the most incendiary moment in the event's history, a controversy so divisive it would make these other disagreements look like a friendly debate over a dinner bill. Bubba. Which brings us to number 16, Bubba Watson's miracle at the 2012 Masters. This is the stuff of legend. The setting, the second playoff hole, the 10th at Augusta National. Bubba hooks his tee shot wildly into the trees on the right, a seemingly impossible position. For most players, this is a pitch out and pray for par situation. But Bubba Watson is not most players. He's 164 yards from the pin, deep in the Georgia pines, with no direct line to the green. The ball is sitting on pine straw. This is where his unique genius takes over. Instead of a conservative punch-out, Bubba visualizes a shot that few would even dare to attempt, a massive, high hook around the trees. Even analyst Nick Faldo in the broadcast booth is skeptical, calling his chances very slim. But Bubba has a vision. With a 52-degree gap wedge, he takes a stance aimed nearly 90 degrees away from the green. He closes his stance dramatically and unleashes. The ball explodes off the pine straw, and begins to curve violently from right to left, seemingly defying physics as it navigates the corridor of trees. Time slows down as it bends toward the green, and then perfection. It lands softly on the putting surface, just 15 feet from the hole. It's a shot you have to see to comprehend. A simple two-putt later, and Bubba Watson was a Masters champion. That shot didn't just win a green jacket, it immortalized him as one of the game's great artists. Billy. At number 15, we have another moment of intense frustration. It's Billy Orchell at the controversial 2015 US Open at Chambers Bay, a course whose fescue greens were, to put it mildly, not well received by the players. And Orchell didn't mince words. After his final round, he went directly after the course setup and the USGA. Upon finishing his round, instead of the typical pleasantries, Orchell delivered a scathing critique on live television. He wasn't just upset with the putting surfaces, he was incensed by what he perceived as an unfair test of golf, from the course design to the conditioning. "I've lost a lot of respect for the USGA this week," he declared, a stunningly direct criticism of golf's American governing body. He then provided a hole-by-hole takedown. Number 4, god-awful. Number 10, he described as having areas of just dirt, not sand or grass, but dirt. This was a player at his breaking point, frustrated by conditions he felt were unworthy of a major championship. At one point, he faced a putt that trickled slowly, then caught a slope and rolled 4 feet past the hole. You can see the disbelief. His critique, while harsh, echoed the sentiments of many of his peers. Math. Here we are at number 14, a painful reminder that counting to 14 can be the hardest part of golf. The year is 2001. Ian Woosnam, the 1991 Masters champion, is in the thick of contention at the Open Championship. He begins his final round on fire. On the very first hole, his tee shot nearly results in a hole-in-one, leading to a tap-in birdie. He's now tied for the lead of the Open. The dream of a second major is very much alive. But as he walks to the second tee, disaster strikes. His caddy, Miles Byrne, suddenly realizes a catastrophic error. He turns to Woosnam and delivers the gut-wrenching news: "We've got a problem. There are 15 clubs in the bag." For context, the rules of golf strictly limit a player to 14 clubs. Woosnam, incandescent with rage, grabs the extra driver and angrily flings it off the tee box. But the damage is done. The penalty is 2 strokes for each hole where the breach occurred, with a maximum of 4 strokes. Since the error was discovered after the first hole, he's assessed a 2-stroke penalty. In an instant, Woosnam's opening birdie is transformed into a bogey. The psychological blow is immense. He would go on to finish in a tie for third, 4 strokes behind the winner, David Duval. While the penalty strokes alone didn't cost him the victory, one has to analyze the monumental shift in momentum. It's a heartbreaking what-if moment in major championship history. Trash talk. Now at number 13, a rivalry that proves that bulletin board material is a very real thing in golf. Back in 2000, journeyman pro Stephen Ames made some incredibly bold comments about the game's undisputed king, Tiger Woods. He didn't just question his game, he questioned his character, calling Tiger spoiled and suggesting his on-course demeanor was disrespectful to fellow players. Ames implied that Tiger's dominance had fostered an ego that was out of check. It was a remarkably candid, if ill-advised, critique of the world's #1 player. Tiger Woods forgets nothing. Fast forward to 2006 at the WGC Match Play Championship. The draw pitted Tiger against Ames in the first round. Tiger's response wasn't verbal, it was a clinical, cold-blooded performance. What followed was one of the most lopsided victories in modern golf. Tiger Woods dismantled Stephen Ames, 9-8. To put that score in perspective, he won the first 9 holes consecutively, closing out the match on the 10th green. It is the definition of total and utter domination in match play. Afterward, when asked about Ames' comments, Tiger simply replied, 9-8. The message was delivered. The moral of the story, if you come at the king, you best not miss. Paula. Next up, number 12. The 2015 Solheim Cup in Germany. Suzann Pettersen is about to become the center of a firestorm that would define the event. The format is 4-ball. Pettersen and her partner Charlie Hull are facing Americans Allison Lee and Brittany Lincecum. They arrive at the 17th green with the match all square. The tension is palpable. Rookie Allison Lee faces a birdie putt to win the hole. She misses, leaving herself a tap-in of about 18 inches for par. In what appears to be a misunderstanding, Lee believes the short putt has been conceded. She scoops up her ball. But as she walks off, Suzann Pettersen intervenes, stating that the putt was, in fact, not conceded. Chaos ensues. According to the rules of match play, because Lee picked up her ball without holing out and without the putt being conceded, she loses the hole. Europe is awarded the hole. Lee and Hull are both in tears, the American team is furious, and a debate on sportsmanship rages. Technically, Pettersen was within her rights. But the move was widely seen as a violation of the spirit of the game. But this moment had an unintended consequence. It galvanized the American team. They entered the final day singles trailing by 4 points, but playing with a renewed sense of purpose and anger. Team USA mounted the largest comeback in Solheim Cup history, storming back on Sunday to win 8.5 points in the singles matches to claim a dramatic victory. Phil being Phil. At number 11, we have Phil Mickelson, one of golf's most beloved figures, in a moment that was truly shocking. The 2018 US Open at the brutally difficult Shinnecock Hills. It's Saturday, on the 13th hole. Phil faces a tricky downhill putt that he misjudges, sending it racing past the hole. Knowing the ball is likely to roll completely off the green, Phil does the unthinkable. He runs after the putt and deliberately strikes the ball while it is still in motion. This is a clear and intentional breach of the rules. But from Mickelson's perspective, it was a strategic calculation. He knew allowing the ball to roll off the green could lead to an even higher score, so he knowingly took the penalty. The broadcast team was stunned. "Wow, that's stunning," one commentator exclaimed. The golf world was in shock. The immediate question was whether he should be disqualified. However, the USGA applied Rule 14-5, which calls for a 2-stroke penalty for hitting a moving ball. They deemed it was not a serious breach that would warrant disqualification. Phil, ever the showman, simply accepted his 10 on the hole and walked to the next tee with a wry smile, even giving a thumbs up to the bewildered crowd. A bizarre chapter in a legendary career. Tiger Woods. We're halfway through our list. At number 10, it's the 2013 Masters, and Tiger Woods finds himself at the center of a complex and controversial rules situation. It's Friday on the par 5 15th hole. Tiger's third shot, a wedge, is perfectly struck. But then, in a moment of incredible misfortune, it hits the flagstick and ricochets directly back into the water hazard. Frustrated, Woods opts to take a penalty stroke and replay the shot. He takes his drop in what he believes is the correct area, but he unknowingly drops the ball approximately 2 yards behind his original position. This is a subtle but critical violation. Under Rule 26-1, the drop must be as nearly as possible to the original spot. 2 yards behind does not meet that standard. The infraction was initially missed, but a television viewer phoned in to tournament officials to report the potential violation. The Masters Rules Committee reviewed the footage and initially cleared Woods. But the situation changed when Tiger, in his post-round interview, admitted that he had intentionally dropped it a couple of yards back. That admission triggered a second review. The final ruling, a 2-stroke penalty, was assessed the next morning. Normally, signing an incorrect scorecard results in disqualification. However, a discretionary rule allowed the committee to apply the penalty retroactively. Tiger was allowed to continue, but the incident sparked a massive debate about rules enforcement and the role of television viewers in officiating the game. Putting anger. Coming in at number 9. The mental anguish of golf on full display. This is Danny Lee at the 2020 US Open at Winged Foot. The setting is the 18th green on Saturday. Winged Foot is already one of golf's most demanding tests. Lee is faced with a 4-foot putt for par. Routine for a tour pro. He misses the first putt. Frustrating, but it happens. He misses the comeback putt. Now, concern is setting in. He misses the third putt. And the fourth. And the fifth. At this point, it is a complete mental breakdown on the green. It is painful to watch. After finally, mercifully, holing out for a quintuple bogey 9, having 6 putted from 4 feet, Lee's frustration boils over. He takes his putter, the source of his misery, and repeatedly and violently slams it into his golf bag, destroying the club. He angrily storms off the green and promptly withdraws from the tournament, citing a wrist injury. One can only speculate as to how that injury was sustained. A brutal display of how this game can break even the best. Nelly Korda. Get ready for number 8. We're back at the Solheim Cup. It's Saturday afternoon at Inverness Club. The 4-ball match features Americans Nelly Korda and Ally Ewing against Europe's Nanna Koerstz-Madsen and Madeleine Sagström. On the par 5 13th hole, Korda has a long putt for eagle. Korda's putt tracks towards the hole but stops on the very edge of the cup, overhanging the lip. This triggers one of golf's most specific rules. Under Rule 13.3a, if any part of the ball is overhanging the lip, the player is allowed a reasonable amount of time to get to the hole plus an additional 10 seconds to wait and see if gravity will pull it in. Sagström, however, not waiting for the 10 seconds to elapse, quickly walks over, picks up Korda's ball, and tosses it back to her. This is a critical rules breach. The rules official is called in and informs the European pair that because Sagström lifted the ball before the allotted time expired, the ball is treated as hold. Korda's eagle is conceded. Sagström is visibly distraught. She argued that the ball had stopped moving and was never going to fall. But the rule is absolute. The officials stood by the decision. Korda and Ewing were awarded the eagle and a 1-up lead, a lead they would not relinquish, winning the match. Bunker. Next up, number 7. We go back to 2003 for arguably the most infamous bunker shot in major championship history. Thomas Bjorn at the Open. It's the final round at Royal St. George's, and the Great Dane, Thomas Bjorn, is on the verge of his first major title. He holds a 2-shot lead with just 3 holes to play. The claret jug is all but his. But on the par 3/16, his tee shot finds a deep greenside bunker. A difficult, but manageable shot for a player of Bjorn's quality. But then, the unthinkable happens. His first attempt fails to escape the sand and rolls back down to his feet. As he prepares for his second attempt, the ball comes to rest in the footprint he just created, a plugged lie of the worst possible kind. The gallery watches in stunned silence. How can this be happening? By the time he finally manages to get the ball out of the bunker, he's taken 3 shots to do so. His 2-shot lead is gone. His major championship dream is shattered in the sand. He never recovers, and a little-known American rookie named Ben Curtis goes on to win the Open Championship. Embedded ball. Sliding into number 6, we return to Patrick Reed. It's the 2021 Farmers Insurance Open. On the 10th hole, Reed's approach shot finds the deep, wet rough. He arrives at his ball and determines that it has embedded in its own pitch mark. Under Rule 16.3, a player is entitled to free relief for an embedded ball. But the controversy here wasn't about the rule, but about the procedure and the optics. Before calling over a rules official to verify the situation, Reed picks up his ball. While players are allowed to self-enforce the rules, this was an unusual step. Reed's justification was that a nearby volunteer had told him that the ball did not bounce. However, television replays later showed conclusively that the ball had, in fact, bounced once before settling in the rough, making it highly improbable that it would have embedded. This raised the crucial question, should Reed have waited for an official before touching his ball in a sport built on a foundation of integrity? Reed's quick action created a cloud of suspicion that he did not afford himself. An official did eventually grant him relief, and he saved par, but the incident once again fueled the debate surrounding his on-course conduct and reputation among fans and peers. Caddy issues. You've made it to our top 5. The player-caddy relationship is one of the most sacred in golf. But here, Bubba Watson puts that relationship to the test. After a poor shot, instead of internalizing the frustration, Bubba turns his anger outward, directly at his longtime caddy, Ted Scott. On-course microphones captured the entire exchange. Bubba publicly berates Scott, questioning his club selection and strategy in a way that is incredibly uncomfortable to watch. Bubba can be heard saying things like, "That's the wrong club," and blaming Scott for finding the water off the tee. From an analyst's perspective, this is a terrible look. The player hits the shot, the ultimate responsibility is his alone. After the round, Scott would often publicly shoulder the blame to de-escalate, but the pattern was clear. If your caddy is consistently apologizing for where your golf ball ends up, perhaps it's time to look in the mirror, not at the bag. Legendary shot. Number 4. When you discuss the most iconic shots in golf, Tiger Woods' chip-in on the 16th hole at the 2005 Masters is always in the conversation. This wasn't just a great shot, this was pure theater. He's in a back-and-forth duel with Chris DeMarco in the final round, clinging to a one-shot lead as he comes to the par 3/16. His tee shot flies long and left of the green, leaving him in an almost impossible position. The ball is in the second cut of rough. He has to chip it onto a lightning-fast green that slopes severely away from him. CBS commentator Lanny Wadkins noted that getting the ball within 15 feet would be a fantastic result. Then, Tiger steps in. He takes his stance, visualizing a shot that requires perfect touch and imagination. He lands the ball on his exact target, high on the slope. And that's where the magic begins. The ball lands softly and begins its slow, inexorable journey toward the hole. The energy from the patrons builds with every rotation. And then, it reaches the edge of the cup and stops. It literally stops, hanging on the lip for what feels like an eternity. The Nike logo is perfectly framed for the camera. And just as it seems destined to stay out, gravity takes over. It drops. The eruption from the crowd is deafening. Vern Lundquist's call, "In your life, have you seen anything like that?" is as iconic as the shot itself. It was golf's version of a masterpiece. What the heck? Coming in at number 3. It's the second round of the 2021 Scottish Open. A marquee group of Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and Justin Thomas are on the 10th tee, preparing for their opening shots of the day. What happens next is one of the most bizarre security breaches you'll ever see. As McIlroy prepares to hit, a spectator calmly walks out of the gallery, past the ropes, and directly towards McIlroy's golf bag. He moves with such nonchalance that for a moment, he almost appears to belong there. He reaches into Rory's bag and attempts to pull out his driver. When it gets stuck, he pulls off the head cover instead. Unfazed, he then calmly reaches back in and grabs an iron. At this point, the players and caddies are looking on with a mixture of disbelief and confusion. Realizing he's been noticed, the fan doesn't retreat. Instead, he holds the iron, takes a stance, and begins to take a few casual practice swings, as if he's part of the group. The entire tee box is frozen in a moment of surreal confusion before security finally intervenes, escorting the man away. A truly strange and unsettling moment. Charlie. At number 2 on the list, we have Charlie Hull. It's a Thursday practice round at the Solheim Cup. Charlie Hull is known not just for her world-class talent, but for her refreshingly authentic and unfiltered personality. She's going through the motions of her practice round, when she does something you will likely never see another pro do. In the middle of the round, she calmly walks over to the gallery ropes. At first, it looks like she might be interacting with fans or signing an autograph. But instead, Charlie singles out one fan, leans in, and casually asks, "Have you got a lighter?" The fan, slightly stunned but happy to help, produces a lighter. Charlie lights up a cigarette right there on the course, takes a drag, and calmly continues her round. It's a moment that perfectly encapsulates Charlie Hull. In a highly polished and corporate era of golf, She plays by her own rules, and fans love her for it. Angry. And finally, number 1. The undisputed champion of on-course anger, Sergio Garcia. This isn't a single moment, it is a career's worth of legendary meltdowns. Let's begin with the 2019 Saudi International. After a poor bunker shot, Sergio's frustration boils over. He repeatedly and angrily slashes at the sand with his club after the shot is gone. But that was only part of the story. He was later disqualified from the tournament for serious misconduct after intentionally damaging 5 separate greens during his round, reportedly out of anger. Officials described the marks as looking like damage from an animal. When your tantrum is being compared to livestock damage, it's a sign that you may have an anger management issue. But we're not done. Let's rewind to 2007 at Doral. After missing a short putt, Sergio Garcia leaned over and spat directly into the bottom of the cup. Not near the hole, but in the hole. It's an act so disrespectful to the game and his fellow competitors, it's hard to even comprehend. ESPN rightly called the act gag-inducing. Then there was the 2018 Valero Texas Open, where after a bad drive, Sergio threw his driver into a thorny thicket and was then forced to climb down and retrieve it himself. And who can forget 2017 at a playoff event, he so badly bent his putter in frustration that he was forced to putt with a fairway wood for the remainder of his round. Then, at the Open Championship, he got into a battle with a gorse bush. And lost, injuring his shoulder. The paradox of Sergio Garcia is one of golf's great enigmas. He is a Masters champion, a Ryder Cup hero, and one of the most supremely talented ball strikers of his generation. And yet, his legacy will forever be intertwined with these moments of uncontrollable rage. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. Please leave your ideas for future videos in the comments.